The Koravath streets were packed, but they'd soon run red with alien blood when the last human in the universe came to kick ass and get revenge. It had been 500,000 years since those Tzenkethi bastards on the Galactic Council blew up Earth and slaughtered humanity for daring to defy them. They thought they'd wiped humans out. They were dead fucking wrong. Joseph Clark strode through the crowds of chattering, bug-eyed freaks, the only human left in existence. Hidden away in a cryopod, he'd escaped the extinction of mankind, and now he was awake in a strange nightmare future. His only reason to keep breathing was to make the Tzenkethi suffer for destroying his species, and he'd burn down the whole fucking galaxy to do it. First on the agenda was hitting up a scumbar in the bad part of town and getting intel on the Tzenkethi leaders. Joseph entered the dimly lit dive, the stink of alien booze and bodily fluids assaulting his nose. A four-armed brute of a bartender eyed him suspiciously while polishing a filthy glass. "Ain't from around here, are you?" Joseph flipped back his hood, revealing his human face. The bartender dropped the glass and stumbled back in shock. The music died as every alien eye in the joint turned to gawk at him. They started murmuring to each other in their garbled tongues, some putting hands to holsters. "I'm human," Joseph said, "and I'm here to make the Tzenkethi pay for murdering my people." It was suicide, gunning for payback in a universe that wanted his species dead and gone. He was one against billions, with just the weapons and tech he'd pulled from old Earth's bones. If he failed, the Tzenkethi would keep ruling the galaxy, and humanity's extinction would be complete. But Joseph didn't plan on fucking failing. It was time for the student to become the master, for mankind's last son to show why humans had always been the biggest badasses in the universe. It was time to stop taking the Tzenkethi's shit and start dishing it back out. Lock and load. The alien apocalypse starts now. The scaly bartender's meaty fist slammed down hard, rattling glasses and silencing the murmuring crowd. "All right, listen up," Taurus bellowed, his voice booming through the dingy bar. "This human is under my protection. Anyone who tries to harm him answers to me." Grumbles rose from the patrons, but they backed down, returning to their drinks. None dared to challenge Taurus. The bartender's rep as ex-Tzenkethi Special Forces kept the rowdiest assholes in line. Taurus turned to Joseph, lowering his voice. "You've got guts, human, but you're gonna need more than that to take on the Dominion. Lucky for you, I know someone who can help." He led Joseph to a hidden door in the bar's back, the entrance barely visible in the dim light. The room beyond was small, occupied by a single cloaked figure. As they entered, the figure removed her hood, revealing a female Tzenkethi with glinting cybernetic implants around her eyes and temples. "This is Zara," Taurus said. "She's part of the resistance against the Dominion." Zara stared warily at Joseph, her artificial eyes scanning him. "A human? I thought your kind was extinct." Joseph smirked back at her. "Not quite, and I'm here to make sure that Tzenkethi pay for what they did to us." Zara nodded, a spark of impressed respect flickering in her gaze. "We've been waiting for an opportunity like this. With a human symbol to rally behind, we can finally overthrow the corrupt leadership." She pulled a small data chip from her cloak and held it out to Joseph. "This contains the location of our secret base and the identities of Tzenkethi officials we've marked as targets. If you can take them out, it'll cripple the Dominion's power structure." Joseph took the chip, determination burning in his eyes as he closed his fist around it. Consider it done. He turned to leave, but Taurus grabbed his shoulder. The bartender's grip was firm as he met Joseph's gaze. "Be careful out there, human. The Dominion's got eyes and ears everywhere. Trust no one." Joseph nodded. He was ready to embark on his mission of vengeance, now with unlikely allies in a hostile galaxy that wanted humanity dead and gone. Joseph slipped into the Tzenkethi Central Command Center, disguised as a hunched maintenance worker, his face hidden behind a thick veil. Security waved him through without a second glance. He made his way to a secluded terminal, inserted Zara's data chip, and got to work hacking through firewalls. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he tunneled deeper into the system, finally breaching the classified files. Schematics, fleet deployments, black site prison locations. The Dominion's darkest secrets scrolled across the screen as Joseph downloaded them to his suit's computer. Suddenly, alarms shrieked through the complex. "Alert! Unauthorized access detected," a robotic voice blared. "Initiate lockdown protocols." Heavy boots thundered down the hallways. Joseph ripped out the data chip and activated his cloaking device just as a squad of armored Tzenkethi soldiers burst into the room, plasma rifles raised. They fanned out, scanning for the intruder, but their visors saw only empty space. Joseph crept along the wall, holding his breath as he slipped between the soldiers and out the door. He sprinted down the corridor, still cloaked, as he armed the explosives strapped to his suit. Soldiers shouted as he barreled past, but they were too slow to stop his escape. Joseph leaped through a window, shattering the glass, and hit the ground running. Behind him, the command center erupted in flames, the shaped charges ripping through its power grid and servers. Tzenkethi comms devolved into panicked chatter as the EMP fried systems across the base. Joseph allowed himself a tight grin. The Dominion would be reeling from this blow. Over the next days, Joseph carved a path of destruction through the Tzenkethi leadership. Zara's intel guided him to their secure compounds and covert strongholds. One by one, he infiltrated these sanctums and eliminated his targets: the spy master of the Tzenkethi secret police, the admiral of their first strike fleet, the overseer of their indentured soldier program. Joseph was a wraith, a vengeful ghost that the Dominion's defenses couldn't track or stop. Whispers of his deeds spread like wildfire through the subjugated worlds. The human avenger, the legend whose death had been exaggerated, aliens who had never dared resist their overlords suddenly saw a flicker of hope. Rebels and malcontents crawled out of hiding to join Joseph's swelling ranks. Among them was Rax, a prodigy hacker barely out of his adolescent scales. What he lacked in experience, he made up for in raw talent, and Joseph took the kid under his wing. Together, they hatched a plan to decapitate the Dominion by assassinating the Tzenkethi Emperor himself. They would infiltrate his palace by stowing away on a supply shuttle, then fight their way to the inner sanctum. Rax would slice into the palace security systems to clear the way while Joseph dealt with the Emperor's elite guard. They drilled on mock-ups of the palace layout, preparing for every obstacle. The night before the mission, Joseph's wrist computer pinged with an incoming message from an unknown sender. He almost deleted it, assuming it was spam, but something made him pause. He opened the message. "The Emperor didn't give the order," the text read. "The true enemy lurks in the shadows." Joseph frowned, the words seared into his brain. If not the Emperor, then who? The implications made his gut clench. He glanced at Rax, wondering if he could trust the kid. Trust didn't come easy for the last human in the universe. Joseph had no choice but to rely on his new allies. But what if one of them had sent the message as a trick? Or what if it was true, and they were all dupes in a grander conspiracy? Joseph didn't know what to believe anymore, but he had to see this through, even if it was a trap. For humanity. For vengeance. Basti. Joseph steeled himself, pushing aside the doubts and focusing on the mission at hand. The Overseer's base loomed ahead, a foreboding structure bristling with defenses. He turned to the ragtag group of resistance fighters beside him, their faces etched with a mix of fear and determination. "This is it," Joseph said, his voice low and steady. "Our one shot to end this, for humanity, for the galaxy." They nodded, gripping their weapons tighter. Rax, the young Tzenkethi hacker, stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with resolve. "We're with you, Joseph. Till the end." Joseph clasped Rax's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of the bond they'd forged in the crucible of war. Then he turned back to the base, his jaw set. "Let's do this." They charged forward, a small but fierce force against the Overseer's might. Alarms blared as they breached the outer defenses, and a horde of mind-controlled soldiers poured out to meet them. Joseph and his team fought with a savage intensity, cutting through the enemy ranks with blasters and blades. But for every foe they felled, two more seemed to take their place. The Overseer's forces were relentless, driven by a fanatical devotion to their master. Joseph saw his companions fall one by one, their blood staining the ground. Still, they pushed on, driven by desperation and the weight of the galaxy's fate on their shoulders. They fought their way into the heart of the base, where the Overseer awaited. The chamber was vast and shadowy, dominated by a towering figure that seemed to radiate malevolence. The Overseer's form was ethereal, almost godlike, but Joseph could feel the weight of their gaze upon him. "You've come far, last son of Earth," the Overseer's voice boomed, echoing through the chamber. "But your journey ends here." Joseph raised his blaster, his hand steady. "Not before you answer for what you've done to my people, to the galaxy." The Overseer laughed, a sound that chilled Joseph to his core. "You still don't understand, do you? Humanity's destruction was never just about the prophecy. It was about harvesting your genetic potential." A cold dread settled in Joseph's gut as the Overseer continued. "Your DNA holds the key to creating the ultimate soldiers, a new breed of warrior, loyal only to me. With them at my command, I will reshape the galaxy in my image." Joseph's grip tightened on his blaster. "You're insane!" "No," the Overseer said, their voice dripping with malice. "I am the future." The battle that followed was desperate and brutal. Joseph and the last of the resistance fighters threw themselves at the Overseer and their minions, knowing that failure meant doom for the galaxy. Rax fought at Joseph's side. His hacking skills turned to sabotage as he worked to bring down the Overseer's defenses. But even as they struggled, Joseph saw the tide turning against them. Then, in a moment of clarity amidst the chaos, Rax saw an opening. The mind control device that kept the Overseer's soldiers enslaved was vulnerable, but to destroy it would mean sacrificing himself. Rax met Joseph's gaze, a lifetime of understanding passing between them in an instant. Then, before Joseph could stop him, Rax leaped forward, driving his blade into the device's core. The explosion rocked the chamber, and the Overseer's soldiers stumbled, freed from their mental shackles. They turned on their former master, joining the resistance in the final push. Joseph confronted the Overseer alone, armed with a weapon forged from the last remnant of human technology. It was a piece of the old world, a reminder of all that had been lost. The battle was titanic, a clash of wills and ideologies as much as a physical struggle. But in the end, Joseph's resolve proved stronger. With a final desperate strike, he dealt the killing blow to the Overseer. As the Overseer fell, their base began to self-destruct around them. Alarms blared and fires raged as Joseph and the surviving resistance fighters fled. But even in the chaos, Joseph had one last mission. He raced through the collapsing corridors, following the schematics Rax had pulled from the Overseer's database. There, in a hidden vault, he found it. A data core containing the genetic blueprints of the human race. Joseph grabbed the core and ran, barely making it out before the base exploded behind him. He stood amidst the wreckage, clutching the last piece of his heritage as the weight of his victory began to sink in. The Overseer was dead, and with them the Tsenkethi Dominion crumbled. The galaxy was free, but it was also in chaos. The old order had been swept away, leaving a power vacuum in its wake. And at the center of it all was Joseph, the last human, now the guardian of his species' legacy. The genetic data in his hands held the power to resurrect humanity, to give his people a second chance. But as Joseph looked out at the shattered galaxy, he knew that to do so would be to risk repeating the cycle of conflict and destruction that had brought them to this point. Humanity's time had passed, and to bring them back now would only invite new horrors. So Joseph made a choice. He would not resurrect his people, but neither would he let their memory fade. He would upload the genetic data to a hidden database, a secret archive to be found when the galaxy was ready for humanity's return. And then he would disappear, a ghost fading into the stars. There was no place for him in this new world, but he could ensure that the lessons of the past were not forgotten. As Joseph prepared to leave, he took one last look at the ruins of the Overseer's base. In the distance, he saw a group of young aliens, refugees from the battle, picking through the rubble. They were a diverse bunch, from a dozen different species, but united in their purpose. They had heard the stories of Joseph's bravery, of humanity's resilience in the face of annihilation, and they were inspired. Joseph watched as they gathered around a piece of wreckage, a fragment of human technology from the base. They studied it with a mix of awe and determination, a glimmer of hope in their eyes. He smiled to himself, realizing that perhaps humanity's legacy would live on after all, not through their genetic code, but through the ideals they had fought for, the courage they had shown in the darkest of times. Joseph turned away, ready to embark on his final journey. The galaxy would remember the last human, the one who had saved them all, and someday, when the time was right, they would find the secrets he had left behind. If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.